Recording. Hello, it's April. I am so excited to be sharing this amazing interview, an amazing person with you today. This is the April Yvette Podcast. Welcome. I'm so glad that you're here with us. I have a very special guest. Before I introduce her, here's what we do with the podcast. We help you unlock your highest potential personally and professionally, and we do it with balance and purpose. So, my guest today is Jill O'Boyle. She is the founder of Jill O'Boyle Communications, a motivational keynote speaker, a co author, and host of Your Life, Your Story, Rise Up podcast. You're going to want to listen to this podcast all the way to the end because she's going to share a practical tool with you to help you to live a life of purpose. You definitely don't want to miss that. So, let me just give a little introduction and then we'll dive right on in. Jill O'Boyle is a life coach for overachieving, busy women who are seeking to regain control over their lives. Her practical approach to dealing with burnout empowers her clients to transition from feeling overwhelmed and frustrated to living with intention and purpose through both individual and corporate training programs. Having navigated the challenges of performance addiction firsthand, Jill brings a creative and unconventional style to her practice. You can learn more about Jill at www.jilloboyle.com. Somewhere below this video in the in post or in the description on YouTube, you'll be able to find the links to be able to connect with Jill there. So, Jill, thank you so much. Welcome to the podcast today. I'm so glad that you're here.
Oh, thank you, April. It's so good to be here and connected with you. I really appreciate it.
You are so welcome. Well, start us out. Like, where did you start? Tell us a little about your origin story, where you started out that kind of led you into this work that you're doing now, helping really busy women.
Yeah, absolutely. I would be happy to. So I spent the majority of my corporate career in project management. And in that role, I used really my natural gifts of communication, motivation. I loved rallying my teams together for a common goal. I had my gifts of discernment, kind of advising what's the next best step forward on those projects. And so that's where I spent most of my career, and I loved it, and I grew in my role as a leader in my profession. But although I was navigating projects really well, I was successful in all of those projects and events that I handled. As I started to get into my career, I found myself slowly burning out. And it was in that moment where I was started to get a little bit confused because I'm really good at the work I do. I have these gifts of like motivating a team and my team loves me, but yet there was just something missing that I couldn't place my finger on it. And I'm like, I'm burning out, but I still love this kind of work, kind of. I was really getting to a burnout point. So what's going on here? And it was in that moment where I think I finally heard God really clearly remind me that, Jill, your value does not come at all from what you are doing, but rather it's by who you are, who I've created you to be. And I was like, And so I kind of began to like lean into that truth, started to get curious about what God meant from that. And it was in that journey where I really started to find more joy. I started to find more fulfillment. I found more freedom. And it's all ultimately the pathway that really led me to being a coach today, which I know we'll probably get into more of that. So yeah, that's it's a long journey, and I'm sure we're going to uncover a little bit more of that. But now I'm, as you mentioned in my bio, a life coach of really helping women in that stage of burnout, overwhelm, busyness. If you relate to a high achiever, that's definitely who I serve because we are constantly busy and overachieving, but yet we're still not fulfilled.
That is so true. I've experienced that myself, and I think that there's going to be a lot of women and men, for that matter,
Mhm.
listening to this that are going to be able to resonate with that. Can you
Yeah.
describe for us? I'd like for you to go a little bit deeper and describe
Mhm.
when you were in the worst of the worst place of burnout and
Yeah.
searching, like, there has got to be a better way. Can you describe what was happening, what
Mhm.
caused the burnout, and what was the pivotal moment? There was a moment of clarity or an aha moment where you're like, okay, I've got to stop this.
Yeah.
Can you just share a little bit more about your story around that?
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, as I mentioned, I loved what I did to a point that I really didn't. And I was finding myself really burned out, asking lots of questions. And so I just really started to reflect. And when I take you back to some of those years when I was thriving in my career, I can look back now and I can see exactly what was going on. What happened for me was I had a mindset that told me it was all around success and money. And it was a mindset that said, success equals more. Like, Jill, if you can just get here, I really was chasing freedom and fulfillment and joy all my life, but I had a different mindset around it. And I was really just trying to chase this success. Like, if I can get here, then everything will be better. And as I started to really believe that mindset, I started to just kind of take on these different values, these different beliefs that, really, I think these values and beliefs that I think our world also carries, which is this natural thing of busyness that we feel like, okay, if I want to be fulfilled, I have to be busy all the time. That shows that I've achieved something. And so I started to really start believing these lies, like I am what I have, I am what I achieve, I am what I do.
Mm-hmm.
And so if I'm not going to do project management, well, what else would I do? Like it was all tied back to my job. Um, and then the other biggest thing that I also noticed is that was showing up in my life all the time was I was worrying so much about what other people thought about me. So then it was like, I am what other people say about me. I am what other people think about me. And those lies took me on a downward spiral. Because it was never enough. I was never achieving enough. I was never having enough. I was never whenever I would say, okay, if I can just get here and I would get there, right? Whether that be the promotion or finish this project. I'm just stressed out right now because it's just this project, just the season that I'm in. If once I can get through that, I'll be fine. Well, that happiness never came. And so really what I was doing, April, is I was trying to find all my joy and fulfillment from external forces.
Yeah.
And so what happened was those lies just consumed me. I started just taking on all these different values that I really don't ever didn't even see myself in, but I can look back now and my values were definitely all surrounded with my image, being busy all the time, perfection. And so as I stayed in that state of believing those lies, as I stayed in working all the time, so my work became number one in my
Mm.
life. And I prioritized that. And I started to just really prioritize if I want, this level of success, then I must put all my focus into my work and just started to really like prioritize those projects over my own family. And so by doing that, I was really starting to push my marriage aside. I was starting to push my kids aside. I was starting to push my friendships aside and going out with them because I was all, and then as I continued to say no to them, well, they stopped inviting me to places, right? Because she's just too
Right.
busy. She's working all the time, right? So here I am working all the time. I'm really, any project that came across my desk, they would give it to me because they knew Jill would do it. I mean, that's the trap we get in as high achievers. We perform really well. And when we do that, we'll keep getting more.
Yeah.
So it's kind of in a spiral. And so then pushing my marriage and family and friendships aside, and then I remember just coming home every single night, just being so burned out, so exhausted by making decisions all day long. To the point, like, my husband would be like, well, what do you want for dinner? It's like, I don't know. And he's like, well, you do, because you're a woman and you really do care. And I'm like, I just
Right.
don't have any mental capacity to think about anything more. Right. All I
Yeah.
wanted was a glass of wine to just numb my whole day. And just that pattern, April, just kept repeating itself. So just continuously taking on more work, continuously pushing friendships in my marriage side, continuing to drink every single night, which affected my whole body and image issues anyway, because now I'm not getting up and working out that actually fueled me. And so those patterns continued, and I found myself in a moment to this day that I can't believe I would have ever been in. But I remember staring in the mirror one day and looking at myself and thinking, how in the world did I get here?
Yeah.
And it was in that moment I was so full of shame and guilt, and I didn't know how to quit the cycle. But because I had let all of these things happen, I got out of my values. I found myself in the middle of an affair with a coworker,
Hmm.
and it was just in a rock bottom moment of my life where I was so longing to find fulfillment and joy and happiness. And I was searching for it in all the wrong places. And um, I got to that point in my life where I just stood in the mirror and I looked at myself and I said, I don't even know how I got here. And so it was in that rock bottom moment, though, where I can stand here today and I can tell you that, man, God is always so good, and he will meet us in our darkest moments. Um, and so I always say that, sometimes our blessings is found in through our brokenness. And it's
Yeah.
through our brokenness that we can really have a breakthrough. If we are willing to just lean in a little bit to what he might do in that mess, in that messy parts of our lives. And he met me there in that moment.
Mm.
And I am so, so grateful for what he's done. And so it was a journey, I will tell you that. But what I can tell you is my marriage has been 100% restored. He took
Amen.
everything, right? That is my favorite scripture of all time, Romans 8:28. All things work together for the good for those who love God and are called according to his purpose. He used it all, and he gave me a message that now I can go out and I can help others transform their lives when they feel like they are in the worst case scenario, right? Their work has taken over their life. It doesn't even have to be that they found themselves in an affair. Hopefully I could stop you from getting to that path, right? If you
Right?
know,
Yeah.
but it's and everybody has a story, everybody has a journey. And I think so many women, especially, I'm sure there's men too, but women especially, I think we take on so much of this need for external validation. And I think the thing that I have found through my story is just that little whisper that God said, right? My value does not, Jill, your value does not come from what you are doing. Your value is in who you are. And sometimes we can get in those moments and be like, well, who am I? Right? I don't, like, in the mirror, like, I don't even know who I am, God. But he will show you exactly who you are, and he will show you the gifts that you have. And so it was through that journey and a lot of steps that now I use in my programs and coaching that I walk women through, that he led me out of that space of chaos and despair and overwhelm and frustration, and led me to a life of intention and purpose. And that is what I absolutely love to do. And so using just those natural gifts that I've always had, discernment and communication and motivation, like, shows up, it showed up in project management. But guess what? I can use those same gifts to, discern and help women in their lives, speak and go motivate people. So it's amazing how it can come full circle.
What a blessing. To go from this downward spiral of overwhelm and trying to just work yourself to death, trying to
Yeah.
seek validation through external things, to a very serious issue that came up in your marriage. Thank you for sharing that, because I can tell you right now that you are not alone. I would imagine that there are more stories and shame that people have been harboring over situations like that, and maybe something else.
Else. Right.
But the fact that you're able to share it and say, "Here's what I learned from it, and here is
Mhm.
how I got on the other side of it," because
Right.
you chose to do your inner work and do
Yeah.
self-reflection and seek God for healing, because
Right.
that's what that's about,
Yeah.
transforming yourself from the inside out.
That's right.
So
That's
there's
right.
there's hope, there's hope.
There
Uh,
is.
I wanna I
Absolutely.
wanna ask you this. For the people that are watching right now, I
Mhm.
want you to share, what are the top 3 to 5 telltale signs that you are
Mhm.
in severe burnout and in a downward spiral, that could lead to some sort of a crisis, either a health crisis, a marriage crisis, or something.
Yes.
Um, because how do you discern the difference between just being stressed out from work,
Right.
or like you're in burnout mode where this is going to not end well? What are the top
Yeah.
3 to 5 signs you're in severe burnout?
Okay. So I would say the top 3 signs would be number 1, the thing that I realized and actually almost said no to this and my husband stopped me. If right now, if you think about it, if saying if going on a vacation feels too hard for you, like to
Mm,
actually take a step away from work, and I mean step away, like close the laptop, do not open it, feels way too hard for you, that would be a sign. Or let's actually take it let's go smaller. What about taking a day off? Like actually taking 1 day off and not checking that email. If that's like a sign for you, you're probably already in burnout mode, right? Because you have prioritized that work so much. That would be one thing.
yeah.
I would also say if there's this fear of like you are so overwhelmed, you have so much on your plate, but just that thought about delegating some of that feels too complicated to you, that would probably be a sign too, because what that tells me is there's so much control there, right? There's so much control over, I have to do all of these things. Um, and it would be easier. So many times I found myself saying this all the time. Like I had so much on my plate, but I was like, to take time to actually try to tell somebody else how to do this is just, that feels way too hard. So I will just do it. And what we're doing is we're saying the more things that we say yes to, we're saying no to something else.
That's good. Yeah.
And so every single time me saying no, because I had so many people on my team that were willing to probably jump in and take things off my plate. But my sense of control, my perfectionism, the achiever in me got in the way every single time because it had, if they do, it's just not going to be the way Jill does it. So, but they could have done it exactly right, but it's not the way I wanted it, right? So we tend to we think delegation sounds really good. We think, yes, that's what I need to do. I'm going to do that, and that will help me get out of it. But we have no idea how to do that because we have been in this mode of just taking things on and on. So I'd say taking a day off feels like really hard for you. Um, Not being able to truly, like, that feeling of giving away stuff feels even more hard for you because it's just going to take that much more capacity. I would say that would be number 2. Number 3, let's see, in a mode of burnout. Oh, I got one for you.
Okay.
The a bit if you have trouble really with the word no in general.
That's good. That's true. So true.
If you have the hard time saying no, and I mean just saying no. No explanation, just, "No, I don't have capacity for that right now." If you
What
hear
is it
that.
that yeah, what is it that causes people to just really struggle with, being able to say no
Mhm,
without trying to over explain? Some people just can't say no. I mean, they take on too much. What
mhm.
causes that?
It's a lack of boundaries.
Mm,
It's a
mhm.
lack of respect for their own self-worth, their time. Um, Also, what I had found in my own story is there was no I said I had taken on the world values. I completely forgot about what does values mean to me? What values do I have in
Huh.
my life? That was a big thing. I remember being asked that and I'm like, well, I can tell you what my work values are. I can tell you what my company's values are.
Right? But
Me?
what are yours?
What are my personal values? And I really had to sit with that and be like, what are my values? And here's what I can tell you: when you know your values, it makes your whole decision making process so much easier. You can give a hard no because what you'll find is you're like, does that align with my values? Yes or no? No, it does not. So that's a simple no. Um, and so that has been a game changer for me. And it also explained a ton about why I was burning out in my career. And so I was senior project manager. So I led our project management team. And probably my next step in that, the way that their hierarchy of my corporate culture would be VP of operations, right? I mean, just huge step. Like that was the next step. And I was like, she is not going anywhere anytime soon, nor do I know if I really want that kind of role. And so one of my values is growth.
Yeah.
And I had become very stagnant in my role. And so when I started to think about my values are growth, fun, connection, community, and authenticity. And I was lacking all of those.
Wow.
I was lacking all of those in my life. I was not having fun. I was working all the time. My friends weren't even inviting me anywhere because I was working all the time. I
Yeah.
was not growing in my career at all. I was just going through the motions. And I am a very much, if I put fun on my core values, like I like adventure. I like to be doing things, having fun. And that wasn't, happening. So I wasn't growing. I wasn't having fun. Connections, like I wasn't making like meaningful connections with people. I was in before the sun came up, out when the sun goes down. It was Groundhog's Day, every day. And then authenticity, I didn't feel that in my workplace. There was so many times where I felt that I could try to be transparent with somebody and open up only to find out like a leader that I thought I could trust, then I would hear it from somebody else. And I was like, there's not authentic, like that's a little bit more about honesty, which is also a value. But I just felt like there was just, people weren't being authentic. I felt there was a lot of lies. There was, fakeness going on in our culture. Our culture was very much shifting at that time in my life too, which I think played a big role in that. So I think values is a big one. Like if you know your values, you can be able to say no without that, oh no, but maybe tomorrow, or blah blah, or my son has this.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so good. I love the fact that you brought up getting really crystal clear on what your values are. And
Hmm.
when you know what they are, you can take a stand on those. And you're
Yeah.
so right, it helps you to make decisions because you'll know
Yeah.
immediately by just
Hmm.
by ask. I love that you said, ask yourself this question. Is this thing that I'm about to say yes or no to in alignment with my core values?
Right.
Right?
Right.
And then you'll know the answer.
You'll know. Absolutely.
Yes.
Yep.
The
Yeah.
truth is right there. And then
Yeah.
you gotta have the courage to go say, "No," and I love that you said as simple as saying, "No, I'm sorry, I don't have the capacity for that."
Right.
I mean, that's it,
That's it. Yeah.
right? In an
Yep.
email or a text.
Yep. Yep.
Oh, how empowering is that?
Yeah.
That's a big nugget. Y'all write that down. I am.
Yeah, and you know what I would also say around boundaries too, with that, with values and the boundaries.
Yeah.
Something that I learned that really helped me transition, when I started to realize all of these things, and I was like, you know, if you would have asked me back then what was my number one priority, I mean, I would have looked you flat in the face and I would have said family. I mean, family is my number one priority. But there was no actions that would make that statement true. And
Mm. Was it in your blind spot?
yeah, completely in my blind spot.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Absolutely. And so I had to like really look at that, and I'm like, there's no action to make that's all word fluff, right? But so now being in a rock bottom moment and really saying that is really what I want, though. I do want that to be my number one priority in life. So what habits do I need to start adding into my life? What habits do I need to get rid of that are sabotaging that? And so one of the big productivity tools that really honestly helped transform me, because being a people pleaser and having trouble saying yes because I didn't know my
Mhm.
values back then, I created a hard stop. and I put from 4 to 5 on my calendar, because what would happen in my work, and I bet I'm not alone on this, is by golly, it would be 4 o'clock or 4:30, and I'd hear those feet coming down that hallway, and it was like cringe. Like all of us would be like, "Oh, not me." There's always that one person that you know is going to ask and demand your time, and it's just whoever is in their office and looks like they are free. And I just remember that all the time, being like, "Oh my gosh," and oh, what am I going to say? And it's 4 o'clock, and I still have all this to catch up on, and so I find myself all the time just saying, yes, then this will take like 10 minutes. Like, I just need this really quick. Could you just get this done before the end of the day? Well, what about my stuff? What about my stuff that I still had to get done? And then I have kids waiting for me at home. And so I started getting in a habit of creating a 4 to 5 hard stop. And it would pop up on my reminder as like, hey, this is wind down time for you. And what that did was allow other people from blocking meetings on my calendar too. We were
Oh,
notorious for
I
having
love that.
meetings in our culture all the time, meeting just to have a meeting, right? And I was like, nope. And then to take it a step further, when I was in this transition, I then had to communicate that boundary. So it's one thing to just put it for you, but if you don't let other people know that, it will get walked over. And so I went to my team and I said, hey, 4 to 5, I'm putting this on my calendar. I will not accept any meetings because this is my time to close up. And guess what? I encourage you to do the same, because our time matters. Your time matters. As your boss, I'm encouraging you to do this. And I will be leaving. I have a hard stop every day because I had to also earn that trust back from my husband, because I had to stay in this job
Right?
for 4 years after the affair, next to
Yeah.
the person that I had an affair with. I mean,
Oh, wow. Yeah.
talk about faithfulness and trust. And so, but I was committed to making my marriage work, and so was he. But I had to respect that there's all this fear going on in his mind, right? And so I was like, there is no after hours, me working till 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock like I used to. Like, that
Yeah.
will just be a train wreck for him. And so I made it clear, 4 to 5, I'm winding down, and 5 o'clock, I'm out of here. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I'm out of here. And that helped to bring that value and that priority back, that family is my number one. And this is why I'm creating a boundary around it.
Absolutely. So that was my next question is I wanted to ask you to share three specific ways,
Mm-hmm.
tools,
Yep.
or action steps that people can apply right now
Yep.
to help to overcome the burnout. One of those, which is what you just shared, is amazing. Getting in the habit of
Mm-hmm.
creating a hard stop
Yep.
at 4 to 4:30 each day or whenever your workday ends, so you're done and
Yeah.
literally done and clocking out by 5 for the day, and
Yep.
you're wrapped up. And not making it a non-negotiable and then communicating that to others. So
Right.
that's setting a boundary, which is what you're talking about,
That's right. That's
for
right.
those around you. And you don't and doing it from a place of love, but being firm, you
Yeah.
know?
Absolutely.
What other tools, do you have that you could share that would help someone to overcome if they're in a downward spiral of burnout, to finally break free from that and get to the other side of freedom?
Yeah. So I think the first thing, honestly, and this is the first thing I did as well, is I think you need to take some time to honestly figure out, like, what really needs to change in your life. What if you took a hard look at where you're at right now, what is the one thing that you really need to change? And I always say, small steps over time yield massive results. Like, so what is one thing that you can change right now? And for me, what I found when I asked myself those questions is I needed time for me. I was so burned out, and I had young kids at the time, real young, like 2 and 5. And I felt like all I did was work and take care of these kids when I was home. And I was drained. And so the thing that I was like, I just need like 30 minutes to myself. I love coffee. I'm like, I would just love to have coffee by myself without a 2-year-old climbing on me. Okay. Well, when can you make that happen? Well, when they're sleeping is probably the best thing.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna say this, and there's a lot of people that, especially if they're burnout, they think they have no time to do this, but I promise you, this has changed my life. hands down. I created a morning routine of stillness, something that I, as a high achieving, hustling woman, never had, ever. I never slowed down. And that was a mindset thing. That mine was like, again, back to busy equals successful, right? So if you're not busy, you're lazy. That was what my mind told me. And so that's why I never slowed down. But yet I wanted this life of fulfillment. Well, it doesn't come in the hustle. I'm just going
Yeah.
to be frank with you. It does not come in the hustle. And I proved that in my morning stillness. And so the one thing I said was, you know what? I'm going to make 30 minutes for me time. I'm going to set my clock back earlier than the household gets up, and I'm going to just have time for me, whatever that looks like. And it looked different every day, you know, but a lot of it was what I found in that was I forgot that I used to love to write. My pen would start writing in this journal. I forgot that that was a gift that I had from way back when I was a child. That is the moment where I really found my relationship with God. He started showing me the path forward. So I just encourage somebody, one thing you can do right now, if you are so burned out and you are sitting here saying, Jill, I do not have 30 minutes of my day, I just want you to try it. Just want you to try it. Go. And if you're not a morning person, you could try it in the evening, but I am a firm advocate that your days will be more productive. Science has this backed up too, but it will be more productive if you actually start your day filling your own self up before you go and fill everybody else up at your work and your job. You're going to get more done. And so I would say a 30-minute, or just start with 10, start with 15. I don't care what you start with, but just start with a quiet time for you. And that could be yoga in the morning if you want to get your exercise done. Or listening to a podcast, you know, reading. For a while, I tried a bunch of different things. Worship music, just sitting there with listening to, because I love music. That was a big game changer for me because it gave me clarity to start to see and ask myself. What I did really was sit down a lot of times and get a journal and just start asking me these hard questions. How did I get here? What are the things that have been driving my life? What am I hopeful for? What do I actually want to change? Right? What am I really craving? Wasn't another man. It was not what I was craving.
Yeah.
Right? You will find those answers, but you will never find those answers unless you sit your butt down and get in the stillness of God, or go out in nature. Oh my gosh. I just came back from a women's retreat and it was all about stillness and nature. I have a journal, let me tell you, of just the downloads from God. I mean, it's amazing. So go take a walk around your pond,
Yeah.
like things like that. So that would be one thing. So creating that hard stop, creating a morning routine of stillness. And then the other thing that I would suggest is ask yourself truly what brings you joy.
That's a good one.
And so many times you're going to find that that is a hard question for us women because we're
Yeah.
always just so busy taking care of everybody else that we haven't even thought
Yeah.
about ourselves. And what I would recommend you to do is figure out what that is. And I want you to schedule that in your calendar. Because if we don't schedule it, especially if you're an overachieving, high achieving woman, you won't do it. And so it can be as little as, for me, I'll give you here's an example, easy one. What brings me joy is, just like I said, being out in nature, right? But water, especially. I love water. I grew up on a boat when I was a child. We would go boating all the time. We'd take trips to Tennessee and lakes.
Yeah.
Water brings me joy. And so what I did was made it a habit of mine, especially on when it's nice out and the weather's great, because we don't always get that in Indiana.
Yeah.
Go and get yourself around water. Like, what, you know, whether it's a trip or just whether it's down the street, I have a pond in my neighborhood,
I
and go
love
taking
that.
a walk around the
Yeah.
pond. And I
So
still do
good.
that. I still do that today. Like when I feel, luckily, you know, I work from home, so maybe not everybody has that luxury, but when I feel that negative energy or just that overwhelm starting to creep up,
Yeah.
because it's not, I mean, let's be real, this is life. You know, not going to say you're going to do these practices and everything's going to all, you know, be rosy. I wish it
Yeah.
would, but it's definitely going to help. And so those are the things that I'll stop and be like, you know what? It's time for a break.
Mhm.
and I'll just
I
go take
love
a
that you're
walk.
I love that you're scheduling some breaks in.
Yes.
And I think what I want to leave everyone before we close out for this conversation, so helpful with those
Mhm.
tips. I think the very first step that stood out to me is getting still
Mhm.
and getting out your journal. If you choose to connect with God and pray and journal at the same time, great, however
Yep.
you do it. But be willing to tell the absolute truth about where you are,
Mhm.
what's causing the burnout, where you want to be, because that's when you create an opening and a space
Yeah.
to be able to see what you need to see so that you can do something radically different
Yeah.
and create a much better life.
Exactly. Exactly.
So
Yep.
we got just about a minute and a half left.
Yeah.
Um, what's one final thought that you want to share in about 30 seconds?
I think my last thought is don't dismiss the power of community and connection. When we're so
Mm,
burned out, we're very isolated. We're
yeah.
very much living our lives solo, and especially with this remote work. A lot of us find ourselves working from home. Um, that is the next step that I took, and I surround myself with a community of women. And so I just encourage you to, find those friends that, are true life-giving friends that actually uplift your energy and
Mhm.
start again adding them back into your life, finding a community of women. Um, and I know April, is a big advocate of that
So
as well.
good.
So, yeah,
I love that. I love that. Find your tribe, find a
that's right.
community, get
Yeah,
support. All
yeah,
right. Thank you so much, Jill. What an
yeah,
amazing. You can find Jill at jilloboyle.com. And somewhere below this video, you'll see her website and social media links.
yep.
Thank you again. Thank you for tuning in. If this has been helpful, please subscribe, like, comment, share. And I cannot wait to see you on the next episode. Bye.